Hello and welcome to another edition of FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Hi, hello, and welcome. My name is Eric Balkman. You know me from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and of course the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Connect with me on X at Eric Balkman, EricBalkman. October 23rd, 2025, we have Fantasy Football Night in America going on with the Vikings and Chargers just over an hour from kickoff, and who better to have us on the train of watching this NFL game, at least the first part of the game tonight, then the one, the only, the incomparable at Connor Allen NFL from X, and of course 4for4football.com, 4for4 football on X. He is Connor Allen. Connor, welcome back to the show. How the heck are you?
I'm great. Yeah, it's good to be back. I know it's been a minute here, but yeah, I appreciate the kind words and the nice intro there. It was great.
I'm just thrilled that we were able to tear you away from the NBA, not only because the season just tipped off, but you're knee deep in props and bets and basketball right now. And then we get this scandal with Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier today. God, what a day it's probably been for you. I'm sure you're probably ready to kick back and like chill out with some fantasy football talk.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's been an insane day because you get all the stuff coming out about all the different gambling scandals, whether it's Terry Rozier or the coach as well, who was like running like a poker ring. It was like Chauncey's game, it was like Molly's game.
The mafia. The mafia is about just, you can't make this up.
Multiple crime families, like crazy. Like you could not have told me when I woke up this morning that this was going to be today and what lied ahead. But I mean, at least it keeps us on our toes, keeps life interesting, right?
That's what it's all about, is keeping it interesting, keeping it light, keeping it fresh. I'm sure Adam Silver is not thrilled that the week that they tip off the season, this is what everybody's talking about. But it is what it is, man, and we move forward from that. Speaking of, this is a weird transition, but from going from illegal gambling to legal fantasy sports, myffpc.com is where you want to go to hop into the FFPC Weekly Challenge. This is something that we offer each and every week, and we're offering it again once again this week, 8:15 kickoff tonight. So that'll lock up the Thursday night weekly challenge, but you'll still have the Sunday weekly challenge going on as well. There's no draft in this. There's no salary cap. You're just picking 10 players. Or if you want to play with kickers and defenses, you're picking 12 players. You can win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100-team contest. And you say, Bulky, I can pick whatever players I want. Yes, but here's the thing. You can only pick one player per team. So if you want Justin Jefferson tonight, you can't have Jordan Addison. If you want Ladd McConkey tonight, you can't have Orande Gadsden. That's how it works. That's how it goes. One player per NFL team. Register now and play and win, hopefully, at myffpc.com. Shout out to our producer, Sean Engel. Connor, let's get into it. And I want to start off in Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving, according to Todd Bowles, are getting better, but he didn't know whether either are in play to return to practice this week or, quite frankly, even next week, because the Bucs have a Week 9 bye. So we know that they're not playing in Week 8. We know they're obviously not playing in Week 9. Week 10 is when they're going to be back. Hopefully, we don't even know that's the case. Let's talk about Week 8 here, my friend, and look at the remaining players in Tampa that can help you out this week. You're not going to watch this show to find out if Rachaad White is a great start with 6 teams on bye. You know he needs to be played. What I want to do with you, Connor, here is to unpack the other players, the Tez Johnsons, the Sterling Shepards, the Cade Ottens of the world. Where do you stand on, again, tight end premium scoring with the FFPC? Where do you stand on these guys? How valuable are they this week? And what kind of numbers are they going to do, given the fact that the Buccaneers and Saints have a total of 46.5 for that late game window on Sunday afternoon? Who do you like? Who do you not like? I mean, obviously we like Ibuka, but between Johnson, I guess we can throw Cameron Johnson in there as well. Tez Johnson, Cameron Johnson, Cade Otten, and Sterling Shepard. Who do you like in a week to start in a week with 6 teams on bye?
It's hilarious because Cade Otten is basically only used when they lose like 2+ of their starting receivers, because early on in the season, like he just isn't used when all their guys are healthy. And then you have Evans, get injured, and then you have Godwin get injured, and then now you got Buka banged up, who surprisingly played late last week, and that was kind of a game time decision. So I think that Cade Otton's still going to see plenty of target share here, and that's he's kind of the attrition play. It's just when they need him, he's there. He can make plays over the middle. He can catch the ball and fall down. He's not going to do anything crazy, but he'll be out there and be a valuable piece. So I think he's a start for me. Between Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard, and Cam Johnson, I think Tez kind of has the most upside. Sterling Shepard probably has the highest floor, I would say. He's probably going to get 2 to 4 catches, somewhere in that range, 30 yards. And then Cameron Johnson hasn't really played a whole lot. Maybe that changes. He had obviously that big play a couple weeks ago that he caught, but it was on I think 3 snaps, something like that, three or 4 routes, a super small sample size. So, I mean, if you're a true dart throw, probably I don't even know, a 16-team league probably is where you're starting Cameron Johnson. But otherwise, I think I would lean towards Tez or Sterling Shepard.
The other guy that we haven't talked about in this scenario is Baker Mayfield. And this guy was unbelievable. He's been unbelievable so far this year. But last year, I remember when Evans went down, when Godwin went down, when they didn't have Egbuka, and he was throwing to a lot of these guys. They didn't have Tez Johnson either. And he was throwing to these guys, and they were being, they were very successful. They were moving the football, they were scoring points, they were winning games. And I look at Mayfield this year, he had the clunker last week when Evans went down. I think they put up, 9 points? It wasn't a good game for the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. When you look at what he's been able to do last year with not a lot of talent around him, and then you consider what happened last week, again, with not a lot of talent around him, but Detroit was trotting out, sort of their JV secondary, and Mayfield couldn't solve it. What's your level of concern for Mayfield this week? Because, even if you have been starting him the majority of fantasy weeks this year, which I think has paid off for him, you think about some of these other guys that you might have drafted on your team in addition to Mayfield, Daniel Jones, Jackson Dart, maybe you picked up. I wonder if any of these guys are going to be better starts than Mayfield this week, given what's around him. Or do you think the Mayfield magic just continues? It was a blip on the radar last week. How do you feel about Baker Mayfield this week in fantasy leagues here, Connor?
Well, he also gets the Saints, right? So I think that helps a little bit. The Saints, their run defense has actually been okay from a efficiency standpoint. They're middle of the pack in success rate and EPA. Their pass defense is not good. And they let up a lot of total yards, but that's because they're always losing. So the other team's always winning and running the ball. But on a per down basis, their run defense is not bad. So a little bit of a pass funnel there for the Saints defense here. And I think a lot of Mayfield's output, honestly, is going to come down to how healthy Egbuka is, right? If Egbuka is 90%, I think Mayfield probably has an awesome day. If he's 60% or whatever he was last week, and he was out there, but he wasn't really, 100%, I think the downside is a little bit bigger there, especially if, I don't know, the Bucs get maybe a couple turnovers, and they don't really have to throw the ball and they're not pressed, which is certainly in the range of outcomes. That being said, our projections still have him as a start. I think we're at QB7 still on our projections for this week. So still ahead of a guy like Daniel Jones, still ahead of a guy like Jackson Dart for now. But that being said, if you got a gut feel that, Daniel Jones, you like him over him. I mean, we have him back to back. So I'm not going to steer you otherwise here.
Let's go to X with a couple of questions, start sit questions here. We'll kick things off with Brady McLean, who, I mean, I'm guessing Brady, I don't think he has to pick one of these guys because it's pretty loaded. So maybe the best way to do this, Connor, is to rank them, and you can let us know what 4 for 4 has here between these guys. He says Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, Drake London, or Xavier Worthy. Now, for me, if I have to pick one of these guys, it's clearly London. I'm playing London over these other 3 guys. I would rank Xavier Worthy last because I'm concerned about, with the reintroduction of Rashee Rice into that Chiefs offense. I'm concerned about what Worthy's role is going to be in games where they are 12.5, 13-point favorites like they are Monday night against Marcus Mariota and the Commanders when they come to town. So I wonder if he's just going to be running more wind sprints than being a receiver that game. So I rank him last. London is first. Coin flip between Addison and Johnston. I'm going to go with Addison over Johnston here because of the rise of Orande Gadsden that we've seen the last 2 weeks. So the way I would rank them would go London, Addison, Johnston, Worthy. How do you feel about those?
That is exactly how we have it. So like, yeah, it'd be London, Addison, Johnston, Worthy. I think that QJ could be in for, so interestingly enough, though, I think that QJ could be in for a bounce back week. If we're looking at just like how these defenses match up and with Addison. So like the Chargers play a lot of like kind of shell zone defense that like prevents some of like the over the top stuff. And so I think Addison might have like a slightly down week in terms of like, I mean, I'm talking like maybe 4 for 50 and a touchdown down week, not like nothing bad, just like not, 100 yards and whatever he had, before. So it's not, I'm not expecting a ceiling week from him. Whereas Quinn Johnston, I think could have more of a ceiling week this week, worked his way back in last week, was awesome early in the season. They continue to feed him targets. And so even though we have them ranked the other way around, also, Minnesota, they've been good on like a, down to down basis. They've been like play tight defense, but they've been susceptible to allowing a lot of big plays here and there. So I think QJ could have a long one this week.
We'll see what happens. We'll talk more about that in our second segment tonight. Speaking of other start sits involving Chargers, let's go to Doug Pretty Boy Smith's question here on X. He's got a decision between Rhamondre Stevenson against the Cleveland Browns or Orande Gadsden hosting the Vikings tonight. This is real simple for me. I'm going to go with Stevenson in non-tight end premium leagues, Connor. But if it is a tight end premium league like the FFPC main event, FFPC Big Gorilla, or anything like that, I'm going to play Gadsden. Where do you fall in on Stevenson versus Gadsden?
Yeah, I'm kind of down on Stevenson this week. I agree with the tight end premium versus non-tight end premium thing. And I know that the Patriots are like, home or favorites against the Browns. The Browns can't really move the ball. I don't think they're going to move the ball that well against the Patriots. So you're probably getting a lot of volume for Rhamondre, I would say. But I'm not super big on like his efficiency, especially against his Browns, defense. Their Browns defense has been great. It just hasn't quite the offense hasn't quite come together. So I think the Rhamondre, there's a little bit of downside there. They worked in that undrafted free agent Terrell Jennings a little bit at the end there. And, the clip went viral on X about like our new 5-minute back. I frankly don't even know what that means. Like, I don't know what a 5-minute back is. And then Travion Henderson still somehow only got 2 carries. I think eventually he's going to get there. Maybe it's just some level of copium that I'm, like hanging on to. But I'm not even a big bag holder. I just think it seems ridiculous that they don't like at least get him incorporated somehow one way or another. So I think there is a little bit downside for Rhamondre. And I mean, Gadsden's played so well the last couple of weeks that personally, I'd probably lean him.
I'm huffing the same copium. Do you huff copium or do you inject it in your veins? I don't even know. I need to get up.
Choice.
I need to get up to date on my social media drugs and how to ingest them. But I'm with you on Henderson because and somebody asked me this too the other day. They're like, is Henderson a drop now? And I just basically said like, look, I don't think it's going to happen for him anytime soon. I think maybe at the end of the season, we'll see more of Henderson. But quite frankly, he still falls into that injury away type running back, right? So even if you don't like him, even if he's not being used, if there is a significant injury to Stevenson, I feel like they have to use Henderson at that point. And that's why I'm keeping him on my roster. I have not dropped him anywhere. May have a tough decision in a league coming up next week, but been able to hang on to Henderson thus far. Okay, moving on to Miami here, Connor. Mike McDaniel said this would have been yesterday, Wednesday, in his meeting with the local media there in South Beach. He said a backfield split would be an ideal approach to the team's running game. Devon Achane has 212 touches through 7 games. I'm going to repeat that. 7 games this year. Devon Achane has 212 touches. That is more than 30 touches per game. An insane amount for a guy his size and on that offense. Now, McDaniel said he wants to see Ollie Gordon more involved in the rushing attack. Obviously, in order to do that, the Dolphins have to start getting out to some leads and playing from ahead instead of playing from behind all the time when you need Achane's pass-catching chops out there. If we look back to week 3 against Buffalo, McDaniel said that was more ideal, where it was more like a 70-30, 65-35 or whatever. It was 12 carries to 9 carries for from Achane to Gordon on that. 7 catches for Achane in that game as well. My issue is this. For us Achane owners, is this a good thing? Like, should we want to see a split? Because I can't imagine Achane staying healthy for the duration of the season, especially including playoffs, fantasy playoffs, if he keeps up this workload. I kind of would like to see Ollie Gordon involved more. So if I got to take a little bit of a hit right now, I'm fine with that as long as I get Achane for that 3-week sprint at the end of the season. And like if I could play in the FFPC main event or Big Grill, that's what I'm talking about. That's when the money is being paid out, and that's when you want Achane healthy. Ideally, and I think that's the key word here. Ideally, you want a backfield split. I wonder, Connor, if McDaniel was almost alluding to like it's not an ideal situation in Miami, and they're going to keep riding Achane hard and getting him involved as much as they can, especially now with Tyreek Hill out for the year and Darren Waller on injured reserve.
Yeah, and that's kind of the vibe that I got there as well, because he said like there were a lot of, so he said, quote, there have been a lot of touches where he wasn't the primary on the play. So I do think I do think that there are very other talented players in their backfield, and it's best for the team if we can spread the ball out. But it's a lot easier when you have games where you don't turn the ball over, which again, hilarious that Mike McDaniel and Tua continue to like toss their own team under the bus, at various points. But yeah, I think optimally, yeah, they have Ollie Gordon coming in to kind of take some of the between the tackles carries, like the thumper, like, short down and distance, like stuff like that to get less wear and tear on Achane. The problem is I just don't know if Mike McDaniel's going to do that. I mean, he's coaching for his job at this point. Like he's throwing everything that he can out there. He also said too, last week and was like, yeah, we might have to change our offensive strategy if like things aren't working out, which in my mind means like they've been still like they're 6th in pass rate over expectation. I think that they're might maybe go run heavier, which could be more Ollie Gordon, but maybe the same amount of Devin Achane. That's kind of like the sliding scale of, projecting out future workload. So I think Achane will be great. Just pray that he gets healthy. Hold your breath the next couple weeks, because I mean he's a stud, and if you can get any like big Dolphins offensive outputs here, I think he could. I mean, he should have been like a league winner, if the Dolphins were anything remotely decent, and they're just absolute trash, unfortunately.
It's kind of like what if you have Christian McCaffrey in a league, right? It's the same thing. God, I love the volume. I love the touches, but I worry about the workload. It's a catch-22 thing, balancing what you want to see and what you need for your fantasy teams. But at the same time, you want to make sure these guys are healthy at the end of the season. So that's what it is. Hope that they're still, winning league or winning games for you week to week, but hope that they stay healthy as well. I don't think these guys are in any danger of having too heavy of a workload in Carolina, and that's where I want to go next. David Newton, who covers the Panthers for ESPN.com, stated earlier this week that Dave Canales plans to continue with this 2-back approach with Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. He says he trusts both of these guys. This past week, Hubbard had 38 snaps, Dowdle had 33. Dowdle had 18 touches, Hubbard had 16, and this is not a great fantasy situation. Typically, we'd like one of these guys being rested or one of these guys out. I don't want to wish, any of these guys to be hurt at all, but typically you like one of these guys in the lineup and one of them not. That's not what we're getting right now. 6 teams on bye this week. Beggars can't be choosers as Carolina hosts the Buffalo Bills. I think both of these guys are in the neighborhood of top 25 running backs this week. And in that case, I feel okay in this scenario, this with, only 26 teams in action. I feel okay about starting both these guys, but I still lean in favor of Dowdle. I wonder if the Panthers are still going to lean in favor of Dowdle in the touches as well.
Yeah, because Chuba started last week and then they rotated in Dowdle a little bit and instantly felt like there was a pop, like he was running better. I mean, they're playing the same team. Like, I don't know, he outproduced him by a significant margin. It almost felt like the Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker kind of split, that we see consistently. And Chuba Hubbard is just one of their guys, but I think they really like Dowdle at this point too. So I could see Dowdle kind of taking over. Is that this week? I don't know. Again, they get Buffalo. Game script is going to be a problem. But you also have Andy Dalton probably making a start, which I think kind of changes the dynamic of this a little bit, maybe for some of the receivers specifically. But I think for the running backs too, I think the Panthers are going to try and go run heavy when things fall apart. I mean, they've done it before, just rely on Dalton to throw it a million times. So it's going to be an interesting game because it's very tough one to project. If it's close, Dowdle and Chuba could probably see a bunch of carries each and be relied upon. If not, I mean, they might just be chucking the ball, and like we could get like less than 10 carries for both, which would not be ideal, but some pass catching work. So again, it balances out.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want to make sure I'm understanding you here. Who benefits more between Dowdle and Hubbard with Dalton in at quarterback? Or is the difference negligible? Is it not a huge?
I don't think it matters as much for the running backs. I think both Tet and Jalen Coker get a massive boost, even though Xavier Legette was like the big beneficiary last week. I think that Tet could see a massive bump this week. It's just like a very interesting spot for him to potentially see some real volume that's like a little bit more efficient.
I want to go to Tom Smith on YouTube right now, who has a quarterback question. And honestly, I thought Lamar Jackson starter sit questions were going to be easier to answer at this point, but they're not, Connor. And I want to get your take on this. Jeff Zarebic, who I believe I'm pronouncing that name right, who covers the Ravens for The Athletic, said today that Lamar Jackson was practicing and he, quote, seemed to be working at a similar rate as yesterday. He was limited in practice Wednesday, limited again today. You'd like to see him get in a full practice tomorrow. We may not get that. He has not played since week 4 when he strained his hamstring. Now, here's the issue for Tom tonight. While the upside of Lamar Jackson is probably higher than Justin Herbert, Justin Herbert's playing tonight. We'd have to wait until Sunday to find out if Lamar Jackson's going to be able to go. Would you, and this is sort of a nuanced thing, would you play Herbert tonight, not knowing, although thinking Jackson's probably going to be okay, but we don't know for sure. Would you run the risk of not being able to play Jackson on Sunday if you play Herbert tonight? Or if you don't play Herbert tonight, then you really got to scramble Sunday if Jackson's out.
It's very tough, but we put together a couple pieces here. So if you think about Lamar Jackson too right now, coming off a hamstring injury, he's probably not going to be 100%, even if he does play, right? So if coming in there, he's kind of limited, banged up, he's not going to be 100%. I think Lamar is someone that is super dependent on his legs, not only for just like general NFL speaking, but like fantasy stuff too. Like that's how he scores a lot of points. A banged up Lamar, like who's kind of forced to be in the pocket a little more, or maybe be less agile. I'm not sure that that's like an optimal thing here. And the Bears defense has been playing a little bit better. They're just super opportunistic. They're going to let up a lot of big plays, but they play like aggressive man defense. They blitz a ton. I mean, they're bringing Jaquan Brisker off the edge like every other play, basically, like against the Saints, which was crazy. And so I would assume that they're going to do the same against Lamar. And so from like a fantasy standpoint, I worry a little bit. I would probably go Herbert, to be honest, if I'm there, because I feel a lot better about what I would get out of him. Lamar, obviously, game-breaking upside, massive there, but like a lot of that comes through his legs. And so I think that's, kind of a downside here. And the prop market agrees with me. His rushing yard prop is 27.5 yards only. Normally we're seeing like 46 to 47.5. So a pretty massive downgrade there. Yeah.
Let me ask you this too, because this is something I was talking about my local fantasy football show earlier this afternoon. The total on that Bears-Ravens game is 49.5. Do you think the odds makers would put that out there knowing that Cooper Rush is a serious candidate to start that game? I mean, I feel like they set that total based on thinking that, Lamar Jackson's going to be out there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think from like when they opened it, they were 7-point favorites and it was like a 49, 50-point total. When the news of like, well, we're not really sure, but we think Lamar, which is basically what it's kind of been like trending for the last couple of days, the spread moved from like 7, it was like 6.5, 7 to now 6, 6.5, and then now 49.5. So yeah, I would say that one of the most liquid markets in all of sports betting right now in terms of NFL sides and totals is leaning towards Lamar playing very heavily. Like this is like a 95%-ish Lamar line basically at this point.
But you could get Herbert tonight, which, and he's healthy. Like he doesn't have the hamstring issue. And Herbert, a lot of people, well, maybe I'm overstepping when I say this, but I feel like a lot of people forget about how good Herbert is with his legs too.
Oh,
we should see that tonight too.
He's great. I would go Herbert, just to be clear. I would go Herbert. That's but my opinion. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Trade from Chance F 20,000 on Twitch right here. Just made a switch, sent out Michael Pittman and Chase Brown in exchange for Odunze. I always love getting the best player in the deal. I think Odunze is probably the best player in this deal here. Depending upon what you have at running back here, Chance, I think you did fine. I would rather have the Odunze side in this deal. Connor, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. As long as you have some running backs to kind of put in there. Chase Brown's been just not that good. The offense hasn't been able to drag him along, which is kind of the whole thing. And his workload wasn't like the workhorse workload that we thought we were going to get when we like early in the season. So yeah, I don't mind it at all.
We also have Freak TPG chiming in. Kimani Vidal Kimani Vidal or Alvin Kamara. Vidal plays tonight against the Vikings. Obviously, Kamara is at home against the Buccaneers. Kamara also is questionable right now with a ankle injury, limited in practice yesterday, limited today, but he won't have to fend off Kendre Miller for touches and carries against the Buccaneers here. This is razor thin for me. I think I lean towards Kamara. I don't think he's in any danger of missing the game, Connor, but I'd love to hear what you would do if this is your team and you could only play one between Kamara and Vidal.
Yeah, they came out and said that he was working on the side, but he's fine basically. So it's like kind of like a veteran's rest, essentially. I would go Kamara. Again, no competition for touches here. Whenever that's been the case over the last couple of years, they just jam Kamara like a million times. Whether it's there, whether it's on the ground, doesn't matter. So I think I would go him. We have him on 4-4 ranked 2 spots higher as well.
I will bring up too that noted pass catcher Nyheim Hines was once again elevated to the Chargers active roster tonight too. So will that take away from Vidal on offense? Is it more of a depth thing? I don't know, but it's certainly not great for Vidal's case in Kamara v. Vidal. I'm with you. I think it's Kamara here. Let's go to Houston and talk about the pass catchers here. Nico Collins, Christian Kirk not only did not practice yesterday, they did not practice again today. Collins, it's going to be a tough job getting him cleared of concussion protocol, knowing that he played in that 10 o'clock game on Monday night, and then they have the 1 o'clock game coming up this Sunday. And Christian Kirk, not exactly a spring chicken anymore, and he's dealing with a soft tissue injury in his hamstring, which can be very, very tricky here. I don't believe either one of these guys play. And if that is the case, we have to talk about the players who will play, who will be catching passes from CJ Stroud on Sunday afternoon when they host the 49ers. Guys like Jalen Noel, guys like Jaden Higgins, guys like Xavier Hutchinson, and then Dalton Schultz, who I actually picked up in a couple of leagues where I have tight end issues this week because of injuries and bye. And I feel pretty good about Schultz. I want to find out if you feel good about Schultz or one of these other receivers this week, knowing that it's a small total, 41.5 on that Texans game, but somebody's got to catch passes, Connor, for Houston.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I'm leaning towards neither playing. I think for sure Kirk is out. It's probably going to be a multi-week thing. And then potentially Nico as well. Jalen Noel played awesome like last week. When he was able to play, it was really interesting. He started the game, and then Braxton Berrios ran more routes than him in the first 8 to 10 plays, which was pretty frustrating considering I think Jalen Noel's a promising rookie and Braxton Berrios is just a jag. He's just out there running routes. And so I think that him and we'll see Jaden Higgins, probably a lot of those two, hopefully. And so I think if you're in a jam and you want to start either of them, I mean, in deeper leagues, I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I think both are pretty talented players and should see a reasonable amount of targets. And then Dalton Schultz as well. It's kind of just these attrition plays this. They got to throw to someone. And I think that, Schultz is fine. We have him tight end 9 on the day in FFPC scoring. So, again, a top 12 tight end nowadays is not that bad.
Schultz this past week against Seattle on Monday Night Football. Granted, they were, playing from behind most of the game, but Schultz had 10 targets. He caught 9 of them for 98. You mentioned Noel was awesome. 7 targets, which was 3rd on the team. He catches 4 of them for 77 yards. It's a real tough sell for Xavier Hutchinson. 1 catch, 13 yards. Jaden Higgins, 0 for 0 on 3 targets in that game too. Braxton Berrios turned his 1 catch into -1 yard. You had Woody Marks out there with 3 for 20. I think he's a force as well. Not a force, but he's a significant contributor as well. But yeah, I think it's Schultz, and I think Noel is very, very intriguing in this game as well.
One last thing to add on that situation here. Noel only ran a route on 46% of dropbacks. Berrios 48%, Higgins 57%, Schultz 70%, and then Hutchinson 75%. Despite, just cardio king doing nothing out there. Crazy.
Let's go back to YouTube here. Corey Walters, 5932 on YouTube. Thanks for watching, Corey. We appreciate it. Quarterback question this week: Joe Flacco or Michael Penix? He's leaning towards Joe Flacco since he has Jamar Chase. Connor, even if he didn't have Jamar Chase, I would be leaning towards Flacco over Penix. I think Penix is going to go, but he's dealing with that bone bruise in his foot. We don't know how significant it is right now. I picked up Flacco in a bunch of leagues last night. I'm playing him in like probably 5 or 6 of my leagues for, leagues where I'm dealing with bye week issues. And so I feel really good about Joe Flacco this week. I think he's a borderline top 10 play. To me, this is a slam dunk. Play Flacco over Penix.
Yeah, we have him QB 13, a couple spots ahead of Penix. And I think there's some really big downside for Penix here against Miami, because Miami's like a massive run funnel. They can't stop the run at all. And then you have Atlanta, who loves to run the ball. And anytime they get a chance, game script, matchup, whatever, they're going to jam it down your throat. So I think Penix has legit 22 to 23 carry downside here, or attempts downside here. He could legit throw the ball like 20 to 25 times, which is tough to make it work unless you're super, super, super efficient, which he hasn't been necessarily. So it's for me, it's like a pretty heavy lean towards Flacco, who looks born again. I don't know how many times in his career it's been, but he looked great last week, and now he gets another good matchup.
It's Halloween season. He may have made a deal with the devil. Maybe there was some sort of witch that cast a spell on him that has him, coming through with all these. It's really crazy when you think about, had he started the season with Cincinnati, okay, I could kind of see this in mid-October. He's barely been with the team. He's had essentially 2 games under his belt. Looked decent against Green Bay. Looked awesome against Pittsburgh too. And the other great thing about Joe Flacco is he knows where his bread is buttered. 23 targets to Jamar Chase. This is what we want from our fantasy quarterbacks. Just throw to the best guy, which is what Flacco's doing. For sure. All right. Ray C hanging out on YouTube here. Another one. Has to sit one of these running backs this week. And your choices are Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt on Monday Night Football at Kansas City. Woody Marks, we just talked about the Texans. They're hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Or, as you mentioned too, with Penix, Tyler Algier taking on those Miami Dolphins at home. This is a good matchup for Algier, but the problem is it's also a great matchup for Bijan Robinson. If I have to sit one, I think the pass catching chops of Woody Marks gives me the nod over Algier. I think I sit Algier here in this, but Connor, I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, we have it ranked for this week: Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt, Woody Marks, and then Algier. And it's, relatively close. We got 11.6 for JCM and 10 for Woody. 8.9 for Algier. The problem with Algier is he basically has to score a touchdown. That's how you're literally banking on a touchdown, which I think, to the point that I made, it is a good matchup. And, again, 60 for a touchdown, but you probably feel pretty good about it. But again, he needs a touchdown. Runs for 80 yards. It's still probably less than Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt and Woody, just because they catch more passes.
And he could very well get a touchdown. I'd love to. Yeah. Do you have the odds on that in front of you, Connor, of anytime touchdown for Tyler Algier on side? Because I'd be willing to bet that it's probably much shorter odds, I should say, than it normally is when you are given the fact that they're going up against the Dolphins.
It is nearly even. So we're looking at plus 125 for him to score a touchdown, anytime touchdown, which is very short. That's I mean, it's not quite like a surefire starter thing, but that's like maybe as short as touchdown odds all season, probably.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. And the problem, and I always say this too, when we have these razor thin calls like this, chances are you're probably going to get it wrong. But at least you have these, 3 decent choices that I think, especially with 6 teams on bye, they all make for decent top 25-ish running back starts this week. Brendy Y. Bish, I think is what it is on Twitch here. Should I buy Ladd McConkey low? Now, I don't know how low you can buy Ladd McConkey right now, given what he's been able to do the last couple of weeks, especially when you consider that the backfield for the Chargers is a shell of what it was at the start of the season. If you look at what he's done, dude, 15 targets last week. He catches 9 for 67. The week before, 7 for 100 and a touchdown. He only has 5 for 39 in week 5, but he did catch a touchdown that game. I feel like the buying low window on Ladd McConkey has ended. Or has it, Connor? What do you think about him going forward? Obviously tonight against the Vikings, then he goes to Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville before their week 12 bye.
Yeah, every league's different. If someone's trying to sell him for cheap, I would say absolutely scoop him up. Generally, I agree with you. Like, I don't know if there's anywhere that like the low is probably gone. You're not buying the lowest of the low. Maybe you're still getting a little bit of a discount versus what he was at like, mid-second round, late second round pick in most leagues. He's probably not valued there, like in that capacity anymore. But yeah, I mean, if you can definitely get him a discount, I would be interested.
I would too. And if whoever has him in your league is trying to sell him for 80 cents on the dollar, 85 cents on the dollar, I think this is a player that you need to be in business with. I want to be in business with Corey Walters. Next question here on YouTube. Fantasy football team management question here, Connor. Breece Hall has a bye next week. Does he get traded then or by the trade deadline? And I'm going to add the other caveat, or not at all. Before you answer this, I always treat NFL trades as if they're not going to happen. That's sort of my philosophy in Major League Baseball and in the NBA. And I would think the NFL probably has the much fewer amount of trade deadline trades here, or at least meaningful trade deadline trades. And so I always think that it's not going to get done. I never assume a deal is going to get done. I don't assume a deal is going to get done here. If you have Breece Hall on your season-long rosters, is that the right approach? Because I feel like there's a buying window right now. Whoever trades for Breece Hall, if he does get dealt, is obviously going to be a team that wants to win and that is prepped to make a Super Bowl run, which should be good for Breece Hall. But you never know what kind of team he goes to. I mean, if he goes to Kansas City, are they still going to be rolling out Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco and Brashard Smith? If he goes to, I don't even know, like Los Angeles, he'd probably be the guy there. But then Hampton's going to come back for the fantasy playoffs. And then it's like, well, how good is he then? I feel like standing pat is probably the move I would make here. But I don't know if that's the right move for Breece Hall in season-long leagues right now.
Yeah, the grass isn't always greener, right? So like you said, you gave a lot of good examples of potential spots he could go that like on paper make sense for a little bit, but are probably not optimal for his value in the long run. So yeah, do I think he gets traded? I think there's a decent chance he gets traded. Where to? I have no idea. But the Jets are just so bad. It's like after a week after Aaron Glenn like laughed at someone suggesting that they would bench Justin Fields. They benched Justin Fields. Right. So like you kind of know that probably happened, and then Woody Johnson called him in his office like, hey man, like, you got to consider this or whatever, like talk to the GM or maybe, came through that grapevine of like, we can't keep losing games just because you like Justin Fields and like, whatever. So I think something similar could happen with Breece Hall. Like I'm sure Aaron Glenn or some of the decision makers, like we don't want to trade him, but at the end of the day, like they probably need to rebuild ASAP. So it would not surprise me at all to see him traded. Is that good for his fantasy value though? Potentially, like it's a wide range of outcomes. It could be awesome because, better situation, but it could also be like someone could use him as like their pass catching change of pace back for a couple games. And like, because he's really good at that too. Like that's also a possibility.
Yeah, Brendy Y. Bish on Twitch saying Arizona needs Hall, to be honest. And you're probably right. I mean, they do. Would they pony up what it takes to get him? I have serious questions and misgivings about that. K Money Mixtapes on Twitch. This is a good Ashton Jeanty question, and it's kind of wide open here. Should he trade Ashton Jeanty? And I think this is interesting, Connor, before the Chiefs game last week, I think Pete Carroll came out and said, look, we want to get this guy lathered up. And I'm paraphrasing here. We want to get this guy 15, 20, 25 touches a game like that. Like, he wants him to be a volume running back, right? And obviously we know his chops. We know what his skill set is. We know he can catch passes. We know he's a game breaker. We love that. And then in that Kansas City game, 6 carries, which game script obviously dictated some of that. They just couldn't get anything going. But other than that, dude, I mean, he's had a lot of touches this year. I think that 2 cases can be made that maybe it gets worse before it gets better for Jeanty. Or you could say you're trading him at a lower value right now coming off this Chiefs game. I don't know. It all, beauty is in the eye of the beholder in real life and in fantasy football. Your thoughts on Jeanty as a trade target or a guy you want to move on from in season-long redraft leagues right now?
He's not a target for me. I mean, it's just the team building decision to forego an offensive lineman to draft Jeanty right now is looking really tough considering he has just nowhere to run. It's like he's getting hit at or behind the line of scrimmage almost all of his runs. His yards before contact is really rough. And so, and part of the thing you brought up there was like, they're like, yeah, we want to give this guy a ton of carries. First off, they only ran 34 plays, something like that. One of the lowest in the last 23 years since 2002. And it's because they can't sustain drives. Their offense isn't good enough. Their defense can't get the opposing teams off the field. So when you have all that combined here, like, I mean, he saw 6 carries out of the 30 plays. Like, most teams run at least 55, 60, I think is the average. So like a normal game, you see in 12 carries there, and a better game script, you see in way more. But the problem is I don't see that happening. So like you get the Jags who played really well. They get the Broncos, Cowboys. They still have to play the Chargers, Broncos again, Eagles, Texans. Like, it was just a tough run defense. So like they don't really have a lot of cupcake matchups for them to like just feed Jeanty like they did against the Bears, who were playing really bad run defense. And then, the Titans. Like, I think he's just like, he's going to crush in very specific situations. But if they fall behind, he's toast. If they're in a tough matchup, he's probably not in good shape either. So it's a really tough buy for me. If you could sell him for a lot, then I would do it for sure.
I think Jeanty's an interesting cat for Dynasty as well. We don't have the time to talk about it on the show today, but I think like a lot of these first round, second round rookie running backs, very fascinating halfway through their rookie season and then after their rookie season to see what you can get for him or what you could give up to acquire him as well. Right. Let's see here. Tom Smith chiming in. Adam Schefter said like 20 trades were made last year. Thinks more could be made at this year's trade deadline. Hey, I'm all for it. Let's see it. I'm all for the chaos. Brendy Y. Bish, we've been talking about Brendy's squads here so far. Gave up Kyron Williams and Drake London, gets Bijan Robinson. Was that an L for me? No, that is a W for me in my book, Connor.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. I'm all for the 2-for-1. So, I mean, that's like, especially if you have the depth to supplant it elsewhere.
I want to bring up Tom Smith's thing here. Trade Jeanty for Trevion Henderson, that's a bold call, Cotton. We'll see how it works out. But I will say in regards to Trevion Henderson, in Dynasty right now, Connor, and I don't know how much Dynasty you play, do you think that Henderson is a guy that you should kind of be adding for like 65, 70 cents on the dollar? There's got to be some owners out there that think they just royally screwed up by using the 104 or the 105 in their Dynasty rookie draft on Henderson at this point, right?
Yeah, again, super owner specific. Like, I'm not really buying him right now because it seems like the coaches see something that we don't. Like, so we're like outsiders, we don't see what goes on in the building. We don't see what goes on in like their training and like, they're like analyzing the playbook. Like, they clearly don't seem to think that Trevion Henderson can do whatever they need to do. Yeah. And when he's gotten the chance, he has not really been even all that good. So like, this is like some major problems here. But that being said, if someone's like panic selling and you can get him for like nothing, then sure, why not take the risk? But right now I have very low expectations for the foreseeable future, just because the coaches don't seem to like him very much.
If you were like, let's say you're 6-1 or 5-2 or something in your Dynasty league right now, and you're looking like you're having a really good season, would you give up a future first for Henderson, or is that too much?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another rookie who also got off to a slow start, but it seems like he's coming on right now. Travis Hunter saw an increased role this past week against the Rams in London. Liam Cohen said prior to this game that he wanted to get Hunter more involved in the offense, and he sets a career high in targets with 14, receptions with 8, and receiving yards with 101. Only played 12 snaps on defense, which I think is telling because that was 10 fewer than he played in week 6. The quote from Cohen: "There definitely was a plan going into the game that we wanted to utilize him more on the offensive side of the ball, specifically trying to get the ball in his hands. Then the first half was just kind of funky, the way we couldn't get anybody the ball consistently and get into a rhythm. And then he was able to make some plays in the second half," end quote. Now, I will say, while I was encouraged with what I saw from Travis Hunter on Sunday, Connor, I also understand a lot of injuries in that game, too. Brian Thomas leaves with a shoulder injury. I think De'Ami Brown got hurt that game, too. I want to say, and I could be wrong on this. Don't quote me on it. I thought Tim Patrick got a little dinged up and he missed time. So, quite frankly, when Trevor Lawrence is trying to get the Jaguars back in this game, he had to throw to Travis Hunter. I mean, it was his best possible playmaker to matriculate the ball down the field. So, I want to keep that in mind as well. But for the most part, seeing what I saw from Hunter, I feel like, God, this is what I expected from this guy. Maybe not right away in the season, but we've seen these rookie receivers come on and after a third of the season or after half the season's gone. And I wonder if this was not an outlier. Like, this is not a red herring. This is what we're going to see for Travis Hunter when the Jaguars get back off their bye in week 9 for the rest of the season. How do you feel about Hunter based on what you saw in London?
I don't know if it's going to be consistent, but I think it's going to be more of like what we saw there and less of like what we saw early in the season. So we also had Liam Cohen entering the week saying, we want to make sure that scheming him open and making him our number one on more plays is like a priority. So he did mention it, but I kind of thought it was fluff, and then they kind of did that, I think. So I think that's kind of like the back and forth there is like, yes, there was certainly less target share or target like competition there for him, but also like they talked about it going into the week, he performed, and maybe that's the key to unlocking this passing game, which has been, I don't even know if average is the right word, like extremely disappointing. So
what's been your take on Brian Thomas so far? Like, it seems like we've seen a lot of lows. I don't want to say we've seen the highs, but we've seen like flashes of like what we saw from him last year. I mean, I don't want to utter the words Michael Clayton, but I guess I will.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Thomas was punching above his weight last year. And ultimately, when he takes the field in 2026, his fantasy production will be somewhere between what he did this year and what he did in 2024. Your thoughts on Thomas?
I think a lot of it actually relies on Trevor Lawrence. And like, it seems like there's some like kind of a rift between Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen to some extent. I mean, it got a little crazy. If you remember a couple of weeks ago when the Jags lost and like Liam Cohen's yelling at Trevor Lawrence is like waving him, like being very dismissive of the whole thing. And so, I mean, Trevor Lawrence has not played all that well. He's missed, like Brian Thomas has had a ton of uncatchable passes. When he has gotten catchable passes, he's dropped a ton of them, which again, like, is just like a mental thing there. So, I mean, Liam Cohen even went through it. It's like, yeah, we tried targeting this guy here, but the throw was this way. It was not good this way. Like, it's not good enough. And I think that they know it. So I think this is more of a Trevor Lawrence problem than a Brian Thomas problem. But to the fantasy extent, like a Trevor Lawrence problem is a Brian Thomas problem because if he can't get the ball, like, it doesn't matter how good Brian Thomas is. Like, even if he gets his head screwed on right, is, catching the ball more frequently and has no issues there. I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous. I think it's just a very volatile situation.
Speaking of volatile, one of my fantasy leagues, and nobody cares about your fantasy league, I'm going to share it anyway because I have a show, so I'm going to share it. Dynasty, one of my dynasty leagues last year, I ended up getting Malik Neighbors at like the 102, and then I traded for a future first, turned out to be the 107, and I got Brian Thomas, and I won that league last year based on Neighbors and Thomas production. Fast forward to this year, and my God, Connor, what a difference a year makes with Neighbors on injured reserve and Brian Thomas kind of being MIA a lot. It's what makes fantasy so fun and so maddening of how things can just change like that on a dime. It's absolutely crazy.
It's sad that we got, sapped of a Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors kind of like season. It would have been so fun, just like imagine.
What do we get on that, Connor? Like a quarter and a half, roughly?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like maybe. I mean, he would have just been jamming 10 targets a game to him because, like, I mean, what else is he gonna do? So it's sucks. What could have been?
Did you also see Brian Dable say today that Neighbors has still not had his ACL surgery because the swelling is too bad? I wonder if that puts him behind the 8 ball for the start of next year now, too. Because initially when he tore it, I'm like, well, at least he tore it earlier in the season. But now I'm kind of like, oh, God, I don't know if he's going to be ready next year.
Did they announce it was any other ligaments or was it just ACL?
As far as I saw, and I did not delve deep into this. As far as I saw, it was just an ACL, but don't hold me to that.
Yeah, because I mean, they also don't like always tell us. Like there was a couple of guys where they're like, "Oh yeah, you get like reconstructive knee surgery, came out of his ACL," but then they're ramping up the season. They're like, "Yeah, the guy still has a couple of weeks. He actually got stuff done on like his LCL and PCL, and like it's like okay, well yeah, that adds an extra 3 months to recovery."
Right.
So maybe Brandon Ayuk that happened with like recently. It was like I mean, he still hasn't even played, and like he was a.
And we have no like positive news or really any kind of news on that too. This is looking like a completely lost season for Brandon Ayuk. Pure Dubs only chimes in right now on YouTube with a starter sit question that is pertaining tonight. He's got to make a call on this. I shouldn't say he. Pure Dubs only could be a female. I do that all the time, and I apologize. Aaron Jones or Kenneth Gainwell. He's got to make the call before the game tonight. I lean towards Gainwell a little bit, and I said this on one of my other shows today, Connor. I just have zero expectation on what Aaron Jones is going to do tonight. I don't know if he's going to play 10 snaps, 20 snaps, 30 snaps. I don't know how they're going to weave him in. Certainly he's fresh, but he's a 31-year-old running back, 30 or 31, I can't remember, coming off a hamstring injury off of IR. I don't trust the workload tonight. I know what Gainwell's role is, and I know he's, Pure Dubs only has been getting hit hard with buys this week. I would lean towards Gainwell over Jones, as crazy as that sounds.
I love how Pure Dubs only too said like all my good running backs from bye week, like making sure that we know that this is not like his like it's consistent.
No, guys, really, I'm good at fantasy football. Okay? I just want to let you know that. But it's I got no Kenneth Walker. I got no Zach Charbonnet. I got no Travis Etienne. The list goes on and on.
Pure Dubs only. We're not judging, man. Don't worry. I mean, it could be a 20-person league. We have no idea. That could be a consistent decision. But we have them. It's back-to-back, running back 34, running back 33. I would prefer Gainwell here as well. I think that Jones will probably be using some pass catching situations. Right now, we're looking at his rushing yard prop being like 23. Normally, it was like in the 40s, and then Mason was in the 40s. That's like usually what the split is right now. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case for this week. They're, prop markets are fully expecting a slow roll into the week. So, yeah, I would lean Gainwell and hope he catches a couple balls out of the backfield.
Pure Dubs only chiming into Jahmyr Gibbs and Kenneth Walker are on bye. We knew you knew what you were doing. Like we had full, obviously, you're watching this show. Clearly you're good at fantasy football for certain. So yes, thank you, Pure Dubs, on that. Now, speaking of wide receivers coming off of torn ACLs, let me pitch this to you here, Connor. Christian Watson said his plan is to play in week 8. Now, the Packers, I believe, have up until game time on Sunday night to either activate Christian Watson or put him on season-ending IR because they opened his 21-day practice window after they came off by 2.5 weeks ago or whatever it was. I do believe they'll activate him. Now, as far as playing him this week, I think normally I would say, you're sitting him for sure. Packers offense, they spread the ball around. Even when they needed him to play a bigger role last year, he was, I don't want to say he was a decoy, but he represented a speed threat out there more so than actually being a fantasy difference maker. But this is how I'm going to frame it to you. Dontavian Wicks did not practice yesterday. He did not practice today. I don't think he's playing this week. This is a game that they are going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who play a ton of man coverage, and speed can kill man coverage. And Watson has the speed. Watson was a player in training camp earlier this year where people are watching him run and cut. And they're like, God, did you even tear your ACL last year? So he's been chomping at the bit trying to get back into the game. And when you consider that Matthew Golden could also be that speed merchant on the other side of the field, that might open some things up for Christian Watson. I'm fine if you want to roster him. I've given you the argument for starting him this week. 6 teams on bye. That's the other part too, that you may not have better roster decisions. I still lean towards not sitting him, but I certainly understand that Watson could play not only a significant NFL role, but maybe a starter-worthy fantasy football role with 6 teams having the week off.
They love to rotate wide receivers anyway, so it's not like Watson. It's not like they're going to have Dobbs and Golden be like, oh yeah, like, I mean, I guess Dobbs plays like almost all the snaps, but like they've been rotating Golden a bunch. They rotated Reed when he was in. They rotated Wicks, and then Savion Williams and Malik Heath. So I still think that's going to be the case, right? Like, it's going to be some rotation of Golden, Watson, Williams, and Heath, and the other 2 spots whenever they're in 11. And Dobbs will probably be like the constant there. But I mean, Watson will have his shots, like he'll have his chances. So like I would bet there'll be 1 to 2 deep shots. I mean, in fantasy leagues, like dynasty leagues, I'd be terrified. Guy gets just injured all the time about acquiring him or anything like that. In fantasy leagues, though, I think he's well worth the flyer, especially considering the receiving core is banged up. Like there's not that much to overcome to be a viable part of a pretty good offense in the Packers.
We have a couple of pretty interesting offenses that we're going to preview tonight with the Minnesota Vikings and Los Angeles Chargers, getting it on Thursday Night Football, which is a little bit less than 19 minutes away. We're going to, Connor Allen from 4 for 4 and I are going to hang out, watch the first quarter with you, watch part of the second quarter before we get off the air at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. So if you have starter sit questions, send them in right now to us because we're going to answer them in our next segment. We're not only going to talk about everything going on with the Vikings and Chargers tonight, we're going to talk about J.J. McCarthy. We're going to talk about we haven't got a lot of starter sits on questions on Jordan Mason, which I think is a little interesting because that was one of the tough ones for me, Connor. I want to ask you about that. We're going to talk about the Vikings defense, whether you need to sit them this week against Justin Herbert. We'll talk about the Chargers receivers here. I know we've touched on a little bit. I want to get your opinion on McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, and then Trey Harris from a dynasty and redraft standpoint as well. And of course, one of the biggest pickups over the last 2 weeks in the FFPC, Orande Gadsden, the second. We have to talk about him not only for his rest of the season fantasy production, but his fantasy production tonight as well. You're watching the FFPC Insider Access Show on the Better Sports Network. Connor Allen and I will be back right after this. Don't go anywhere. It's our Thursday night preview coming up.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number 1 running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket, and put that in my bio. FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Andrew Cooper from fantasyalarm.com. Thank you for that resounding endorsement here for the FFPC Weekly Challenge. Check it out now. MyFFPC.com. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 players or 12 players. If you'd like playing with kickers and defenses, there's plenty of people that do. Win up to $2,500 this week, 10, 30, and 100 team contests, one player per NFL team. So if you want to be able to play Jordan Mason tonight, you can't play TJ Hawkinson. If you want to be able to play Ladd McConkey, you can't play Kimani Vidal. That is the slant. That's what makes it so fun. MyFFPC.com. What's making this show so much fun in our second hour here? Connor Allen, NFL on X. He is Connor Allen from 4for4 Football at 4for4 Football, 4for4.com. Joining us tonight for our Thursday night football preview. And it's a fun one tonight. I mean, sometimes I never know how these are going to end up, but we have an NFC team. We have an AFC team that are both pretty good, that have a lot of not only question marks from their own from their NFL standpoint, but from fantasy as well. And I want to kick things off here, Connor, with the Vikings quarterback situation. Your read on Carson Wentz versus J.J. McCarthy. I think the prevailing thought on these two quarterbacks, and Kevin O'Connell said he wants J.J. McCarthy being at 130% before he can come back and play. And I almost wonder if that's because he knows that McCarthy is not ready to lead this team on a postseason or even maybe even a deep postseason run, that Carson Wentz gives him the best opportunity to win now. For fantasy wise, I like Wentz for Jefferson, for Addison, Hawkinson, and all those guys. And I really don't know if I've learned a whole lot about J.J. McCarthy so far this year. And I'm kind of going off what O'Connell's been saying about why Wentz still remains the starting quarterback. Your thoughts on these guys? I think Wentz is a guy I'm trying to sit this week. I may not be able to in certain leagues. And then McCarthy, I still have him on a bunch of season-long leagues. I haven't cut him yet. And I'm wondering what I'm going to get with that present that I unwrap, as he starts games again, maybe later this month, next month, and then in December as well. Carson Wentz versus J.J. McCarthy as far as season-long leagues go, and I'll let you wax poetic on this.
Yeah, I really think that, there's a couple layers to this here, because I think that Wentz is probably a better quarterback for fantasy leagues. I think that J.J. McCarthy, and from a pure football perspective, there's no way that they can actually bench JJ McCarthy right now. I mean, what you're getting into when you drafted him. He got injured. He's been out. He didn't play all that well prior to that, but it's a roller coaster. It's not all uphill. You see plenty of young quarterbacks not come into the league and just be super dominant right away and then figure it out. They have the infrastructure around him. The Vikings have a decent offensive line. It was expected to be better than it is, but they have a good running game. They have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Kevin O'Connell being an absolute genius in terms of scheming. You can't ask for much more for a rookie quarterback. You should give him at least, you should give him a little bit longer than what you gave him, leash wise there. So I think that he'll be back next week. I think that he will be back and be the starter. I don't think that there will even be a debate. It's not like Carson Wentz has been lighting the world on fire. He's been fine. He's been fine. He's been good for fantasy. But real life quarterback, I don't think he's been very good. So, I'm confident that JJ will come in and be the starter again.
The running back situation gets a little bit more muddied tonight as opposed to what it was while Aaron Jones was on IR. I'm wondering your impact, or the impact that you think Aaron Jones is going to make on Jordan Mason. I just looked this up before I asked this question. I own Jordan Mason in 5 of my leagues this year. I'm starting him in 3 of my leagues. I'm benching him in 2 of my leagues tonight. I think that the impact for Jones on Jordan Mason, I don't want to say it's minimal. I don't want to say it's significant. I think it's somewhere in the middle. But I could be wrong on this. Obviously, Jones coming back, I think, kills Xavier Scott more so than anything else.
Yep.
But what are you doing differently with Jordan Mason on the leagues that you would have him in this week based on Jones making his return to the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that it mainly impacts pass catching, whatever there was there. I mean, Xavier Scott was already soaking up most of that anyway. So I don't really see it as a massive impact, honestly, to him. Maybe it in the long run, lowers his touch ceiling, his carry ceiling, right? Almost certainly Aaron Jones will have more carries than Xavier Scott was getting, right? That's, no doubt. But for this week, coming off, wasn't even sure if he's going to play, still a little bit uncertain. Again, it's on Thursday. I just don't see them rolling in here and be oh yeah, sure, Aaron Jones, here's, 10 carries and 4 catches. Like that seems like a lot to take away. I think we're probably sitting more in the 4 to 6 carry range for Aaron Jones, which, again, it's just maybe a little bit smidge more than Xavier Scott. That's what I would say. So for this week, I'm fine starting Jordan Mason. And then from there, it's again kind of back to that like fringe RB 2-3, like start him in the right spots kind of guy, or a flex play if you really need him.
Yeah, Rubio chiming in too on this. Aaron Jones does this now. He goes on IR at the beginning of the season, comes back and finishes strong with fresh legs like clockwork. And I will say that Jones had his heaviest workload of his entire career with Minnesota last year. Green Bay was notorious for, kind of lightening the load, making sure that he wasn't being overworked. Obviously, he had soft tissue injuries that played into that as well. And will it happen again this year? I don't know, maybe. But certainly I think Minnesota has learned their lesson that this guy's hamstrings need to be treated with a little bit more care than they did, 4, 5, 6 years ago. I want to talk about his teammate, Justin Jefferson, here. Over the course of the season so far in 2025, he has 528 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Historically, based on his career, I think he's averaging a touchdown about every 170, 180 yards receiving, somewhere around there. So the stats would dictate that he probably should have about 3 touchdowns right now, or maybe even 4 rather than 1. And all the while this has been happening, Jordan Addison has been looking really good since he's come off of suspension. I'll let you weigh in on this, Connor. Maybe you have stronger thoughts on this than I do. Is Jordan Addison, and I've heard some pretty talented pundits out there talking, fantasy pundits, talking this week about why Jordan Addison might be becoming closer to a 1B in this offense to Justin Jefferson's 1A. How do you view this situation?
Yeah, I mean, certainly closer than what it has been in the past, but I'm not ready to kind of get there yet. We had like pretty much perfect Jordan Addison matchup last week. So like, it was like, basically an amazing spot for Jordan Addison, not that good of a spot for Justin Jefferson. And so now I think we're kind of like a little bit prisoner of the moment with that week, kind of coming into this one, because he has played better lately. He had that, but he had that bomb against whatever, like a couple weeks prior in his first game back. But prior to that, he was like, I don't know, like 4 for 40 or something like that, 4 for 30. Like it was not a whole lot. Then he had a down game, and then he had the big one, last week, like something like, and that was in like a perfect matchup. So now you're looking at a spot where it's like he's been good, but it's not like it's. I think the stats and like the game, like total game, like stat logs there are not necessarily showing the true picture here. So I think in a couple weeks we might see they kind of lean back towards Justin Jefferson being the alpha, and Jordan Addison still being good, still being a viable fantasy player, still being like a number 2 and being volatile. If he catches a bomb, he's like a fringe wide receiver 1. If he doesn't, then he's probably like a wide receiver 2-3 on a week-to-week basis. So it's like, I think that's what you're going to have to live with Jordan Addison, which is fine. That's good. I just don't know if he's ever going to get to like true like wide receiver 1 or even like fringe wide receiver 1 status in my book, at least.
Yeah, probably not on Minnesota as long as Justin Jefferson's there, right? Like it just doesn't work that way, which is fine because he could still be fantasy viable as you pointed out. Speaking of fantasy viable or maybe non-fantasy viable, let me get your take on TJ Hawkinson here this year. Through 6 games so far in 2025, this dude's caught 25 passes, which is not great, but it's okay. He's averaging a little over 4 catches a game. I think the major issue here is he has failed to top 50 receiving yards in any game this season. He is still under 200 receiving yards on the season, and he's only found the end zone once. Is there something wrong with TJ Hawkinson? Is this Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy playing a role in this? I feel like it's too early to call him washed, but I think a lot of people who invested in Hawkinson, not only in redraft leagues, but in dynasty leagues as well, Connor, they were expecting more than this.
He's only 28, so like I struggle to think that he's like washed. I just think it may be a function of the offense, a function of, Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson are great. That's a lot of target competition when you're dealing with Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy. So it's probably not the answer that TJ Hawkinson owners want to hear, but it's like just the reality of the situation, because when you're dealing with other two really strong targets like that, it's just going to be volatile outcomes when your targets, 2 of them might be over your head, and the other 2 will be right on you. Like it's the targets he's going to see are just very random. So it's not going to be like it's consistently nothing right now, but he hasn't seen the spike weeks because it just hasn't all hit yet. I think now if one of those guys were to get injured, maybe and then he had consistent quarterback play, it could come together. Or if quarterback play just gets better, that's also possible too. But overall right now, I think it's just like, we haven't tied in 16 on the week, or 10 to 16 on the week, which is not ideal. I think that's FFPC scoring too, so not great.
FFPC scoring and with 6 teams on a bye, and you have them at tight end 16. Think about that, everybody watching too.
Yeah.
The Hawkinson thing I think is interesting, and we'll look at it going forward here. Is it better for him to have Wentz throwing to him or McCarthy?
I mean, I don't know.
Or is it no difference?
Wentz has been better for fantasy because he's just been like more of a gunslinger. Like they were just like super run heavy with JJ, which might have been just a symptom of the games that they played in, or was probably just like kind of hide JJ / let him ease his way in. And I can't imagine that they're going to just like throw him out there for like 45 pass attempts again. So I guess Wentz, that would probably be my lean, but it's not nothing I'm super excited about.
I have to bring up here as we shift over our conversation to the Chargers tonight on Thursday Night Football, and I want to bring this up right now because we have Bill Hollywood chiming in on the chat, and Bill Hollywood currently in the FFPC main event heading into Week 8 owns the 10th place overall team. And he owns the 26th place overall team. So he's having a really good season so far. Both of those teams are undefeated. He has a 5-2 league in the main event as well. And he chimes in that he's worried about San Diego lighting it up against the Minnesota defense and pass rush. I am too, because I don't think San Diego fields a football team anymore, which is why I want to bring up the Los Angeles passing offense lighting it up against the Vikings D and pass rush. I think, and Bill, I do this all the time. I still call them the San Diego Chargers. But I think this bears repeating with what we talked about with Lamar Jackson versus Justin Herbert before. You said Herbert's probably the play in that scenario over Lamar Jackson. But when you consider, other players that maybe you have on your roster that could be good quarterback starts instead of Justin Herbert tonight, Caleb Williams or Justin Herbert is a decision I have to make, or I've already made it in one of my leagues. But Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Jackson Dart, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix. What do you think about Herbert's chops tonight, throwing to who he's going to be throwing to, but going up against Brian Flores and this blitz-happy Vikings defense?
Yeah, and I think their defense is like the epitome of just like like volatility, because they blitz a ton. They just like wreak havoc and create chaos, but they've let up a lot of like long touchdowns. And that's so it's like he might have a way lower completion rate. He might throw a couple picks. He might get a couple more sacks, but he might score some long touchdowns. I think they're going to be able to still score because like Minnesota's defense has been, again, they're just like a very specific archetype of defenses, and defenses that play differently. Like the anti-Eberflus of like, sit back and try to not bend, but don't break, but still end up breaking anyways. It's like, but just take longer to do so. So it's like that kind of like archetype of coach, like the Flores is the opposite of that. So I think Herbert, given his weapons, will be able to figure it out, kind of like some deep shots here and there, especially getting back some of their offensive linemen. That's huge too. Joe Alt is active for this week, and that matters a ton because the Chargers essentially shifted to like throw the ball as quickly as you can. Like it was like get the ball out, in and out. And then when he held on the ball too long, had to go through like 3 reads, he would just get sacked. So it was like, that was the tough part. So I'm assuming that they figured that out a little bit, and you're just going to have to live and die with the volatility, because it might get a little crazy tonight.
And we always like that on Thursday Night Football. We like a little crazy. Sometimes we like a lot of crazy. We talked about Ladd McConkey earlier. I want to get your input on Keenan Allen versus Quentin Johnston tonight. We have talked a decent amount about Quentin Johnston, but Keenan Allen is an interesting guy who he was kind of trending down until week 7. And then he obviously had that big week, and a lot of Chargers had a big week last week with the Chargers trying to throw themselves back into the game against the Colts. But which Chargers receiver do you like better tonight? Not named Lad McConkey. Is it Keenan Allen or is it Quentin Johnston?
I think it's probably Quentin Johnston, although Keenan Allen has seen a really high target rate whenever Justin Herbert's been blitzed. Like he's kind of been his like security blanket. So he's a higher target rate. He's the highest target rate in the team when Justin Herbert's been blitzed. But the Vikings have been good against slot receivers and not as good against outside receivers, which obviously QJ plays outside. Keenan's been mostly in the slot. So it's like kind of that balance there of what matters more. I think they're both viable, but probably, I think QJ is more upside. I think Keenan is like better bet for like 10 points.
So there you go on the Chargers wide receivers. Trey Harris was a guy that was trending up when kind of Keenan Allen was trending down. But now with the rise of Orande, Gadsden, with them having these three significant receivers, is this a lost year for Trey Harris, Connor? And to piggyback on that, what do you do in Dynasty with this guy? Because it certainly seems like they're set for this year. And I don't know what Keenan Allen's plans are for next year, but McConkey and Johnston sure aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, it's tough. So when Johnston missed Trey Harris, 85% snap rate, coaches like said he was their most valuable receiver that week because of his blocking, said that he like basically gave him like a game ball of sorts, like, of like how he played out there. And QJ comes back and Trey Harris goes back to a 34% route rate. So, tough scenes. Like he's probably the wide receiver 4 on this team. And then, with Gadsden earning targets, like the 5th, maybe 6th behind the running backs option in the passing game. So yeah, really tough to see much upside there this season. But like you said, some of the other guys, they're probably not going anywhere. Maybe Keenan, I think, depending on his contract, could probably move on after this year. So Dynasty, maybe a good buy low. Like coaches love guys who can block. All you need him to do is be out there. And I think he can earn targets. He looked pretty good, when he was out there too. Like, I don't think he looked bad. So, and I liked his profile coming into the year. So yeah, good Dynasty buy low. Basically no expectations for him this season.
And I've been holding on to Trey Harris in the Dynasty leagues. I have him in just for a lot of the reasons that you just said. I want to, as we are underway here at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, the Chargers in the Natron Means Marion Butts Stan Humphreys edition of these uniforms that we're in tonight, the navy blue. The Chargers have kicked off to the Vikings here. We are underway. It looks like there's a penalty on the first play of the game. And it will be against Minnesota. It is an incomplete pass to Aaron Jones on first down. The Vikings now have it 2nd and 10 from their own 16, and we will give you updates on this game going forward here. The last thing I want to say here about this game tonight, Orande Gadsden. Everybody in tight end premium leagues are loving up on this guy. Your thoughts on Gadsden, not only tonight against the Vikings here, but have the Chargers stumbled upon something that's going to be long-lasting, not only from a redraft standpoint, Connor, but Dynasty as well?
Yeah, I think Gadsden is like, they liked his profile. There's a ton of hype about him over the summer. They're like, this guy's getting open all the time. He's crushing, like he's doing amazing. And then they come into the season and he's like a healthy scratch, basically. Like, just like, Conklin's ahead of him. Will Dissly's ahead of him. Like, okay, well, that dream is probably just another training camp summer pipe dream, right? And so, I thought that was kind of like closing shut there. He comes in and has now been crushing it. So I think he's here to stay. The coaches have been super complimentary of him. They made Dissly inactive again for this week. So yeah, I think he's going to be out there, play a ton. And like we're talking like, oh, he's going to be blocking more too. As well. So that helps. You kind of get him out there more and like have him play more. So I think in this spot, like he's a good play here, but also too, I want to circle back. Aaron Jones is starting over Jordan Mason, which I think is interesting. His first game back.
Yeah. And not only is he starting, I mentioned the incomplete pass on first down. He gets a carry up the middle for no gain on second down. Third down, Carson Wentz and Justin Jefferson extend the drive with a 16-yard catch. Now 1st and 10 for the Vikings from their own 32-yard line. So that's the Thursday night preview, and I'll mention to everybody right now too. Obviously, the FFPC Thursday weekly challenge is now closed, but you can still sign up for the Sunday one. No draft, no salary cap. Pick your 10 or 12 player lineup if you want to play with kickers and defenses, and win up to $2,500 this week. 10, 30, 100 team contest, one player per NFL team. Register now at myffpc.com. One of the games that will be heavily involved in the FFPC weekly challenge this week will be the Monday night game between the Commanders and the Chiefs. We got word earlier today that there will be no Jaden Daniels, but it sounds like Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin are on the right track. I am, because of buys, and I'll do the same thing that our YouTube viewers said before. Like, I have good quarterbacks, Connor, on this team. They're just both on bye or they're hurt this week, whatever. I'm playing Marcus Mariota on Monday Night Football in one of my leagues. One, because I feel like the talent around him is pretty solid. Two, because I think it's going to be a negative game script that's going to dictate him throwing at least 30 times in the game, maybe even 40. We'll see what happens there. But your thoughts on starting Commanders skill position players, including but not limited to Mariota, Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and one Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I would say from a Mariota standpoint, I like the start here because I think he might run the ball a decent amount too. The Chiefs have a lot of the highest scramble rate in the league this year and last year. So it's probably just likely a function of their defense. And so that obviously matters for Mariota. Mariota's also gotten a decent amount of designed runs. He has runs of 22, 22, and 25 this year already. So like you said, too, playing kind of the jailbreak game script, like the Chiefs have just been lighting the world on fire. Like if they are putting the Commanders down by 10, 14 points, like Mariota's going to be running a ton, I think, and throwing a ton. So like I think he's kind of a fun, like ugly game script quarterback that kind of figures it out here for the Commanders. In terms of the pass catching options, I still got to dive in more for this week, but I think that they're like fine-ish. I think they probably go more run heavy here, but not a ton of takes, honestly, on this Washington group. Like it's obviously definitely a downgrade from Jaden Daniels, but like we have Deebo, wide receiver 27, and then looks like Terry's going to play wide receiver 28. So, I mean,
which makes sense. This week with the apocalypse upon us, I think both those guys are start worthy. I think Ertz definitely is a start worthy play, especially in tight end premium leagues as well. The Vikings have given the ball up after a Jordan Mason 2-yard carry, a Jordan Addison 7-yard catch. Carson Wentz throws incomplete on 3rd and 1. The Vikings have punted to the Chargers 17, and that's where Justin Herbert and the Chargers will take over. 11:40 to go in the first quarter, no score from SoFi. Tyrod Taylor is day-to-day. I think we mentioned this earlier in the program tonight too, Connor, that this guy has gotten in 2 consecutive limited practices. Garrett Wilson probably not going to be playing. I get if you want to start Breece Hall. What about Mason Taylor? I think he's like in FFPC tight end premium leagues. I think he's the interesting cat here. Do we play Mason Taylor? And I know he's dealing with an injury right now himself. I think he's going to go, but we don't know. But Mason Taylor, how dependent is his fantasy output on who the starting quarterback is between Taylor or Fields?
I mean, this is really tough. I mean, it's bare bones here. Mason Taylor also, I think, was like injured or maybe missed practice today as well. So, I mean, I don't know who they're going to throw to. We're talking like Josh Reynolds and Arian Smith, and I mean, that's it. Like, I don't know who else is left, honestly, at this point. So
I'm just guessing Keyshawn Johnson. Is he out there? I have no idea.
It's I mean, like I have more confidence in Tyrod Taylor like completing passes and getting to like 150 to 200 yards than I do Justin Fields. But he obviously doesn't bring the same upside that we saw like week 1 Justin Fields against the Steelers, where it was kind of like everything was clicking. He was playing well. Vibes were good. Garrett Wilson was there. It's just like hard to overstate just how bad like this team and unit and everything that's going on there is. So for me, like, yeah, I mean, I like Mason Taylor. If he's active, he's probably going to see a lot of work because they just literally don't have anyone else. So I don't see why not there.
We had, I co-own a fantasy football team with my 12-year-old son. We were undefeated. It was my only undefeated team that I had coming into week 7. And we had George Kittle on IR for most of the year. We deployed him in week 7 and he puts up the bagel. Obviously, it's super frustrating here. My son was crushed. It was really hard to get him to go to school on Monday morning after he found out that Kittle put up a 0. No catches on 2 targets in the win over the Falcons. I don't know, man. I don't want to read a whole lot into this, but I have heard a lot of people out there. I shouldn't say a lot, a decent amount of people out there who I trust saying that this is the new ball control Niners, right? With no Brock Purdy, with Mac Jones, they're going to run Christian McCaffrey. You can't really count on any of these pass catchers. With the volatility at tight end, you got to play George Kittle again this week. And certainly, I mean, this had to be a one-off, right? I mean, he's never had a game like this before where he failed to catch any passes in any regular season game for Kittle. Super frustrating, but this is not going to be the norm. It's not going to be close to the norm, right, Connor?
No, I mean, it's just 1 week working back. Like, you know, I think it's another one of those examples where, like, all right, he's good, he's playing, he's healthy, he's out there. And then it's like, okay, well, it's probably not healthy. They're probably just like, all right, well, you know, you're healthy enough, get out there. He's running routes, but he's not a focal part of the game plan and lead up to, you know, what they're doing, right? Like, it's, you know, when they're making these game plans, whether it's scripted plays, whether it's attacking opponents' weaknesses and all that stuff, like, they're probably just not including him that much, but they put him out there because, like, oh, you'll draw coverage away from others or just be out there. And so there's a lot of stuff that I think we can't see that it's probably dictated a lot of what happened there. So I wouldn't freak out. I think he's tons of, you know, greener grass ahead.
I want to keep it on the tight end conversation here with you and go to Chicago to talk about your Bears. Cole Kmet did not practice yesterday, and I believe, yeah, he did not practice today either. This is shaping up to be a Colston Loveland week. The Ravens defense is getting healthier, but I don't think they're all the way back. So to me, this game for the Bears, this is shaping up to be a very interesting one for rookie tight end Colston Loveland. I'm curious to see, or hear, I should say, how you guys have him ranked this week at 4 for 4, because with all these teams on a bye, Loveland's intriguing, man.
Yeah, we still kind of have him like in that like mid to low tight end 2 range. But I do think that, you know, I think there's might be some. Let me see if we have Kmet fully out here in this spot. Yeah, we do. We still have him pretty low. We have him like 2.6 for 34 and a little bit of a touchdown, like, you know, whatever, like 0.2 of a touchdown, something like that. So I don't know. I think that it's pretty interesting because we want to see more usage. He's a talented player. I think that there's a lot of good stuff going on with Loveland. They're not playing him a ton. And so I don't know. I mean, if Lamar plays, like, the Bears will be playing from behind. The Ravens defense is still not fully healthy. So I think there's a lot of upside here. So I think he's, you know, has a little bit of a floor if Kmet sits, and then the upside is pretty significant.
It looks like we have our first score in this Vikings-Chargers game after a negative 3-yard rush for Kimani Vidal. Justin Herbert tries to hit Ladd McConkey on an out, and it looks like there was a miscommunication there as Isaiah Rodgers picks it off at the 8-yard line, at the 18-yard line, and runs it in for a touchdown. They are reviewing the play right now because it looks like the ball may have hit the ground as Rodgers dove for it. As it stands right now, it is a Vikings defensive touchdown. They are up 6-0, and there is an official review on the way. We'll give you the update on that here shortly. It's either going to be 3rd and 13 for the Chargers deep in their own territory, or it's going to be, and I've gotten the word right now, it's like I'm connected to the NFL booth. The ruling has been overturned. It is an incomplete pass to Ladd McConkey. Rodgers could not corral the pass before it hit the ground, so it will be 3rd and 13 for the Chargers from their own 14. If you did start the Vikings defense, like I did in one league, my apologies to you. Moving forward here, David Njoku is hopefully going to be available for this weekend's game, according to Kevin Stefanski. This is another one, Connor. I wish he wasn't. I want him staying out so we can get the big Harold Fannin game here. In a week with 6 teams on bye, are both these guys in tight end premium leagues startable, flexible between Njoku and Fannin if Njoku is healthy enough to go?
Oh man, this is really tough because I think Fannin is in an awesome spot. Like, it's like one of those where I have it written down, and, you know, I make my bets every week, and I have like Harold Fannin receptions like written down as like a bet to make potentially. I mean, we have him as tight end 12 right now on our rankings for this week, and that's like considering some Njoku. Like I think we have like, I don't know what percentage baked in. We had like 2 for 15 for Njoku baked in. I think Fannin could be a good play either way. We've seen them both coexist. Like the only weakness right now that I see the Browns exploiting this Patriots team would be kind of to the tight ends, to be honest. Like they're not going to be able to run the ball with Judkins. We've already seen them kind of abandon the run once before when they fell behind against, it was 2 weeks ago against the Steelers. Dylan Gabriel had 58 dropbacks. First off, outrageous. But second off, like, I mean, it could, that could happen here. Like the Patriots are the better team. They've been playing well. And like, I don't know if they're going to crush them and score 30 on them or whatever, but like they'll probably be leading and playing from ahead. So that might mean we see more passing volume for Fannin for Njoku.
Justin Herbert hit Keenan Allen on the run for a 17-yard catch on 3rd and 13. The Chargers have a first down, and they promptly lose a yard on 1st and 10 with a Kimani Vidal rush up the middle for -1 yards. 9:29 to go in the first as the Chargers try to keep this drive together here. We mentioned briefly the Seahawks running game, Connor. I want to touch on that too. Kenneth Walker, 17 carries for 66 yards against the Texans on Monday Night Football. Every time I talk, it doesn't matter if it's a fantasy football pundit, an analyst like yourself, a high-stakes fantasy football player, I ask him about the Seahawks ground game, and everybody just groans and grimaces, and it's painful talking about it because you don't know what to do with these guys. Now, a week like this with all these teams on bye, maybe it's easier to say, yeah, you start Charbonnet, you start Walker. No end in sight for this committee, right? This is just what we're dealing with in Seattle this season.
I mean, yeah, they came out and said it. They're continuing to use a committee. Charbonnet seems to be like the coach's player that they love, and Kenneth Walker seems to outperform him. He's been better in basically every metric in the way you look at it, but historically he's been a little bit more of a boom bust runner. So like they seem to, I think, lean more into that. And so like, even though this year he's better in success rate, better in yards per carry, basically everything, it's just been a tough sell for them. So I think we're going to continue to see a split for the foreseeable future, unless Kenneth Walker just like starts going nuclear and it's like impossible for them to ignore. Because right now I think it's hard to ignore the differences, but it's not like, I don't know, it's not what they clearly seem to think otherwise. So all we can do is just like see what they think and go from there and make our decisions that way, because our opinions on the split and decision don't really matter too much, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. And I think it changes week to week based on your own team construction, based on the matchup. Like we can't just answer this question now and have that be the de facto answer the rest of the season. It just doesn't work that way with the Seattle ground game this year. We have a Orande Gadsden sighting, 9-yard catch. And then a Jarrett Patterson 3-yard first down run. And then Justin Herbert has hit Ladd McConkey for a 4-yard game. It is 2nd and 6 as the Chargers try to get into Vikings territory here. And that will wrap up this segment. What I want to do when we come back, Connor, is get into some of these tough start-sit decisions involving players like Tony Pollard, Alec Pierce. Let's get into Theo Johnson, Bo Nix we've talked about earlier. I feel like Bo Nix and Dak Prescott has been talked about so much this week. Let's do that as well because we haven't heard enough of it. He's Connor Allen from 4for4.com, 4for4 football at Connor Allen NFL on the X. We're going to talk about all these tough start-sit decisions in the bye-pocalypse here in Week 8. I'm Eric Balkman. The FFPC Insider Access Show rolls on right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. You know, we all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number 1 running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not on the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's two different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at, $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket and put that in my bio, FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
It has been an interesting game so far with the Chargers and the Vikings here, as we covered on FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Eric Balkman, he's Connor Allen from 4 for 4. We saw another pass to Orande Gadsden for 13. Kimani Vidal gets a couple of carries for 9 total yards. And then we see on a third down, a McConkey completion for 15 yards, but then Dallas Turner gets called for roughing the passer, which gets the Chargers in the red zone here. Kimani Vidal loses 2 yards on first down. It is still 2nd and goal from the Minnesota 10 right now, as we have gone under 6 minutes to go in the first quarter tonight. We've been talking a lot of fantasy football stuff with this Thursday night game between Minnesota and Los Angeles. Let's get into some start sits here, Connor, as people are going to be starting some interesting lineups with 6 teams on bye this week. I know myself, I might be flexing out Brashard Smith in multiple leagues this week, which maybe is more of a commentary on my team construction building rather than, how bad the bye weeks are this week. That remains to be seen. But speaking of the Chiefs, what would you do if you were floated this scenario? Would you rather start Isaiah Pacheco on Monday Night Football against the Commanders, or would you rather play Rhamondre Stevenson, the running back for the Patriots, who is going to be going up against the Cleveland Browns defense in Foxborough this week at home?
Yeah, I think, I really think Pacheco is probably the better play here. I don't know. Maybe I'm too low on Rhamondre. I mean, we just saw like weeks and weeks of him just being kind of a nothing burger out there, just like in terms of efficiency and like, he saw some work. He's already fumbled a bunch of times. Like he's probably one fumble away from being like fully benched, I would guess. I keep thinking that every time, and he is in game benched multiple times. Like he does get benched in games for like a quarter or like a couple of drives, but that's like very much in play basically all the time. And then meanwhile, Isaiah Pacheco has seen more and more and more work each week, and he's been playing better. The coaching staff said that he's been playing better. And now he gets Washington, who gave it up against the Bears, and Kansas City's a massive favorite. So like easier matchup, probably a big similar workload. I think Pacheco is probably my lean, even though our rankings have them flip-flopped.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt may not play, obviously in this game. And if that's the case, you're talking about being a 12.5-point favorite at home. This screams to me Pacheco too. So, and say what you will about that Browns defense, like they're tough, and it will not be easy sledding for Rhamondre Stevenson. So I am with you. I think it's got to be Pacheco this week as well. Now we have our first touchdown on Thursday Night Football. After a Justin Herbert scramble for 2 yards, he hits Orande Gadsden for a touchdown here. The Chargers have gone up 6-0 with the extra point underway here shortly. There is also a penalty on Gadsden for unsportsmanlike conduct. I'm trying to watch the replay here, Connor, to see what he did. It had to be something on the celebration or whatever. But that will be penalized on the kickoff here as the Chargers look to take a 7-0 lead. That is the third catch for Orande Gadsden on the night so far. And it looked like he tried to get in the face of some safety on Minnesota. I don't think it was Harrison Smith. I don't know who it was. His teammates tried to hold him back to no avail. It is a 15-yard penalty on the Chargers, but they're up 6-0 for what it's worth. And I'm still trying to find out what's going on with this extra point here shortly. I'll give you the update on that after Connor Allen gives us the update on whether he would play Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt again on that Monday Night Football, or in that Monday Night Football game against Kansas City, or one Tony Pollard this week, who could be facing a negative game script in a game in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil, that they might be down quite a bit early And then I would think it's going to be Tyjae Spears. This is a tough one too, because you hope for the positive, or you hope that the Titans keep it close enough where Pollard's still meaningful, but you can't underestimate the talent for Croskey-Merritt in this game. Again, that could be a negative game script, which benches him as well. I don't know how to fall in on this one. Maybe you can shed some light on Croskey-Merritt versus Pollard.
Well, they're kind of in similar situations for all the reasons you brought up, whether it's negative game script, like playing a team that has like technically the Colts are an easier run defense than the Chiefs. But I think that Tyjae Spears presents bigger problems for Tony Pollard than McNichols or Rodriguez present for Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt. So I would lean JCM. Just again, from like, also he's been played better, like from a talent perspective this year. But I mean, it's close. I would lean JCM though.
Orande Gadsden tonight already with 13.5 FFPC points. Cameron Dicker has kicked the extra point. It is good. 4:01 to go in the first quarter. Vikings getting the ball back down 7-0. To wrap up our running back starter sit discussion here, Tyler Algier, who we talked about earlier, and quite frankly, Woody Marks, who we talked about earlier as well. Normally, you would not want to be playing these guys, Connor, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Woody Marks at home against the Niners, or Tyler Algier, who's at home against the Dolphins.
Yeah, Woody Marks and the Texans came out of the bye, started playing him way more than Nick Chubb. And in another game that probably projects to be somewhat negative game script against San Francisco, I would think that we see more Woody Marks here, probably a decent amount of pass catching. If you play in like a standard league, I mean, Algier definitely makes sense. Even half PPR, I think makes potentially sense to go Algier. Full PPR, I'm going Woody Marks.
I think I'm with you on that, and that's the only scenario I picked Marks over Algier.
Yep.
And the other thing too is like how we saw him get more involved. Even in like, I was surprised he was getting those short yardage carries towards the end of the Monday night game too, instead of Nick Chubb. No injury reported with Chubb, but Marks was getting those carries, so something to keep in mind going forward. All right, let's move to wide receiver here, my friend, and we'll talk about Kendrick Bourne, who has really shown out in the time that Ricky Pearsall has been down. Juwan Jennings has been dealing with injuries. And obviously we talked about Ayuk earlier, hide nor hair of that guy so far this season. So it could be another week of Kendrick Bourne. And if that is, it looks like it's going to be another week of Mac Jones. And we forget about, and I know I forgot about, Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne played together a lot in New England too. So they have that connection. Would you play him, Bourne that is, over Matthew Golden this week? We talked about Christian Watson's impending return. We also know that the Steelers' heavy man coverage this year can be had with speed, and Matthew Golden does have speed to burn here. If you had to pick between these two guys this week, you can only play one as a wide receiver, 3 as a flex play between Bourne and Golden. Connor Allen from 4 for 4. Which way are you leaning?
With Wicks probably missing, we have Golden a good bit higher than Kendrick Bourne. Now, maybe we're too low on Bourne. We have 3.5 receptions and 50 yards projected. Or maybe we're too high on Golden. We have 3.5 and 57 and a little bit more touchdown equity.
Right.
So, it's very close. But I would lean Golden here. Easier matchup against Pittsburgh, too. Houston's, their offense has been bad, but their defense is still very good in a lot of capacities. So I think they probably give the Niners some trouble offensively there. The Mac to Bourne connection is undeniable and has been great. But I'm going to lean with Golden here, I think, for this one.
Do you have to keep Bourne on your season-long rosters until Pearsall gets back? Like, is it non-negotiable to cut Bourne?
I think you might just keep him all year, to be honest, because Pearsall's not been a figure of health. Ayuk is a goner forever. Jennings is he has 5 broken ribs, he said right now, and is an ankle injury. That doesn't heal. Right away. It's going to take some time. So you can probably play, but he's not going to be 100%. So I don't know. I kind of think you just keep him in his stash, and maybe two of these guys are fully injured, and Bourne just keeps crushing.
Right. He's one of those rare wide receiver handcuffs, and he's not even really a handcuff. Because depending upon who it is between Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, he can fill in for both of them, either one of them, on that. You're probably, and again, not trying to say how you feel, I'll ask you, would you be more likely to keep Kendrick Bourne around right now or Brandon Ayuk?
Oh, man. Got to pick one. I don't know if there's any updates on Ayuk. So like probably Bourne, I guess. Like, I mean, well, I would say it depends on your roster. If you need someone to score you 10 points for the next 10 plus points for the next couple weeks, pick and Bourne. If you have like a stacked wide receiver room that there's no shot you're starting Bourne, add Ayuk. That would be my decision. You know,
that's probably the right way to handle that for sure. And then, nothing changing in Green Bay, right? Even with the addition of Christian Watson, this is just more cooks spoiling the dinner, right? You just have too many mouths to feed, too many guys in there. I understand that, there's this narrative out there that too many mouths to feed is a good thing. But like when you're trying to figure out which player is going to eat on any given week, like it is with the Packers, yeah, you don't want to cut Dobbs or Golden or Watson or whatever, but you're not going to know when to start them either.
Yeah, there's a breaking point, right? Like having Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison is a good thing. But then if you add in like third and maybe a fourth where there's not like a big talent differentiator, then it's a major problem because like, I don't know. I mean, Golden, like all those 4 or 5 guys, like, I mean, they're not all the same. Like they all have their own roles, but like to some extent, like there's not like, oh, this guy is so much better than the other. It just doesn't really exist.
The game, the Vikings, this is going to be a quick 3 and out here for them. Jordan Mason, -1 yard. Carson Wentz avoids a rush, incomplete pass to Jordan Addison deep, and then he gets sacked at his own 9-yard line for 8 yards. So the Vikings will be punting after a 3-play, -9 yards drive. It is 4th and 19 with 2:24 to go in the first, and Justin Herbert and company are about to get the ball back. Another receiver question here for you, Connor. Kayshon Boutte, who I think was one of the rare players that got life on the FFPC waiver wire, not once, but twice this year. Obviously, everybody was in on him after he had the big blow up week 1, kind of slacked off after that. We saw some big games from Stephon Diggs and Hunter Henry. He gets released, and then he gets picked up again this past week, or I should say the week before. Kayshon Boutte or Alec Pierce. And before you dismiss the Alec Pierce thing, I do have to say, and not that you would, I'm just saying in case you would, Alec Pierce is the number 3 receiver on one of the best offenses so far in the AFC, led by Daniel Jones. Say what you will about it, but Jonathan Taylor, the offensive line, Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman has been very good this year too. Josh Downs when he's been healthy, and Alec Pierce is this deep threat that can be a game changer here too. So we have to analyze this under the microscope of 6 teams on bye, that maybe you weigh explosive players, spike week type players. Maybe you weigh those types of players a little bit more favorably this week than you would in weeks past because you don't have a whole lot of those high floor players. Kayshon Boutte or Alec Pierce this week, which way are you leaning? And before you answer that, I'll just tell you that Alec Pierce is at home against the Tennessee Titans. Kayshon Boutte also at home against the Cleveland Browns.
We have Alec Pierce at wide receiver 33, which seems crazy, but with the bye weeks, it is what it is. We have Kayshon Boutte down at wide receiver 40. So technically we're higher on Alec Pierce. I think it's more of a coin flip here, to be honest, but the matchup is probably better for Pierce. Certainly these two guys kind of profile the same in terms of like where they're getting their targets. Obviously the Patriots offense has played well, but Stephon Diggs continues to kind of carve out a bigger and bigger role as like the short intermediate guy. They still have Hunter Henry, still have plenty of other options there. And Pierce obviously has plenty of target competition too, but you kind of know what his role is going to be every week in a good matchup. So just hope he catches a bomb for a touchdown, and I think set it and forget it at that point.
I want to ask you about here another wide receiver, and this is, again, another one that I don't think we'd normally be asking, but we have to in this case. Alec Iamaner or Keon Coleman. Iamaner, who, and I don't have the update on Calvin Ridley. It doesn't look good for him playing this week, but I could be wrong on that, dealing with that hamstring injury. And then Keon Coleman coming off the bye here too as well. Yeah, obviously you got Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, but there is, if there is a lid lifter in Buffalo, it probably is Keon Coleman, and he gets the Carolina Panthers defense this week. Obviously in Carolina, they're on the road. Alec Iamaner, I just mentioned with the Titans, they're at Indianapolis this week. Between those two guys, is there one wide receiver that sticks out more than the other that you should be playing in week 8?
It's funny because I think both are pretty good plays. We have Keon projected a little bit higher than Iamaner, but I mean, given both are like Keon, they're like kind of opposites in terms of game script. You're going to see Keon needs to do his damage early, most likely against Carolina, but the matchup is pretty decent. And then Iomanor, like the Colts secondary has been beat up. I don't know what the status of Travarius Ward is. And so that obviously matters for the secondary. But if they're not fully healthy, like Tennessee, maybe he gets going there, probably sees a bunch of targets, especially if Ridley, again, status there is quite up in the air. So like a lot of that matters. And if it all goes one way and neither of those guys are in, Iomanor, I'd probably go that way. If not, then I'd probably go with Keon and just hope he gets there early.
And that does make sense too, as far as that decision that plenty of people in the FFPC are going to be facing this week here, Connor, as we go back to Thursday Night Football, watching this game with you. It is a incomplete pass deep left to Ladd McConkey. There was a free play offside, and so it will be 1st and 5, where Jarrett Patterson, I don't know what's going on here, up the middle to the 50-yard line for 4 yards. It is now going to be 2nd and 1 for the Chargers at midfield. 1:32 here to go in the first quarter. Moving forward to the tight end position. And I think Mark Andrews is an interesting cat this week, knowing that he's been the type of player that could get no points on 2 targets or 0 targets, quite frankly. I could also see him going, 6 for 90 and 2 touchdowns this week, especially if Lamar Jackson plays. Would you be more willing to play that upside, again, with the low floor with Mark Andrews? Would you be willing to play that over Evan Engram, who was drafted as usually the 7th or 8th tight end off the board, has not been there most of the season. And certainly the matchup this week would say, hey, this is going to be a good week for Evan Engram at home against the Cowboys pass defense, which has usually been pretty bad this year. This is a classic case of, well, I don't know if a classic case, but there's a lot of moving parts here where you have the upside of Andrews, but you also have the upside of the matchup with Evan Engram here, Connor.
Yeah, I think personally, if I had this decision, I'm probably going Engram. Our projections have Mark Andrews 11.7, Engram 11.4, right, basically near back-to-back. So I think it's more of a toss-up. I would personally go with Engram. I think that this Dallas-Denver game is just going to get crazy. Now, the total in Baltimore-Chicago is super high, too. I mean, we're talking about 50-point total. And I do think that we could get some pushback here from the Bears. So maybe both games pop off. Again, maybe it could be another decision like we were talking about with one of the other ones where neither is really a bad choice here.
49.5 the total in that Bears-Ravens game. The Cowboys-Broncos 50.5. And the only thing higher than that is Orande Gadsden's total catches in the first quarter tonight. My goodness. Kimani Vidal gets a 6-yard carry to give him a first down, and then Justin Herbert hits Orande Gadsden for another 7-yard catch. Kimani Vidal with the last play of the first quarter as he rushes 6 yards to the Minnesota Vikings 31-yard line, and that is where they'll pick up. And at the start of the second quarter, with the Chargers leading the Vikings 7-0. They've gone to break on Amazon Prime Video. We're going to keep going here for you tonight on FFPC Insider Access right now. Juwan Johnson or Theo Johnson, battle of the Johnsons here, as we have both of these players this week. Juwan Johnson a little bit dinged up in a high total game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then Theo Johnson against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have been more lowercase Philadelphia Eagles over the last couple of weeks. Maybe this is a defense that can be had as well. FFPC tight end premium scoring. Let's assume that here to answer this question, Connor. Theo or Juwan Johnson this week?
Juwan's been really tough because he started the year red hot, looked like he was probably going to be a top 5-6 tight end for the rest of the season. FFPC scoring has really kind of come back down to earth. Now, I had a big game last week, though. And so that's kind of where he's back at. I'm probably rolling Juwan here. We have him tight end 15 in FFPC. We have Theo at tight end 20. Again, only a point really differentiates them. But we have 4 for 45 projected for Juwan and 3.5 for 35 projected for Theo. So neither too bad of an option, but probably lean Juwan here.
I think that's the way to go on it. I think that's the way I would play it. The Juwan Johnson injury is actually a neck injury. So it's not like a hamstring or a calf or anything like that. Be paying attention to that injury report tomorrow to see what Juwan Johnson gets in. Kill for Y123 on Twitch. This is an interesting trade here that they have presented for us, Connor. Which side would you rather have in this deal? Travis Kelce, Cortland Sutton, Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt, on one side, or Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara, a pair of Saints on the other side. In a vacuum, which side would you rather have in this deal?
Oh man, this is a tough one. Probably the first side if you need a tight end. I'm assuming that's why you're trading for one. Like if you have like nothing at the position, probably the first side. I think that the gap between Sutton, Olave, and Merritt and Kamara is not massive, in my opinion. It could be off there, but probably lean that way. Even though generally I go for the 2 in the 2 for 3. I usually prefer the lower number essentially. But if you need a tight end, then Kelsey side. If you don't need a tight end and he's not going to start, then probably the other side.
Yeah, I think the only way I would make this deal is if I did need a tight end. So if I'm getting the Kelsey side of this and I give up Olave and Kamara, but I still get Croskey-Merritt and Sutton back, I think that's a solid deal for sure. Bill Hollywood also chiming in. We talked about the Breece Hall trade possibility before. What we didn't talk about was what you think a team would be giving up for Breece Hall. Is this like a day 3 pick? Would they have to give up a day 2 pick? I don't know how you fall in on this or have any insight into this. What would it take for a team acquiring Breece Hall at the trade deadline this year?
Yeah, I would guess it'd be like a 4th-ish, like third, maybe a 5th or like a 4th, something like that, somewhere in that ballpark. I mean, the reality is though, you see like some of these teams just make ridiculous trades all the time. I mean, you saw like the Chase Claypool go for a first, like you saw Cowboys trade for with Jonathan Mingo or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like these complete terrible trades for just bad players. So Breece Hall is actually a good player, I think. I think Breece is pretty good. So I don't know. Oh, George Pickens. What did George Pickens go for? Like a 5th? Like the comp on this stuff is just all over the place. I'm like, oh, they got this guy for this, but how did this happen? So anywhere from 3rd to 5th, I wouldn't be that surprised, I guess.
It's wild to think, what the Cowboys gave up for George Pickens, and then when you consider what they gave up to acquire Jonathan Mingo as well, and then they also let Rico Dowdle go to the Carolina Panthers. Not in a trade, obviously, but in free agency. And then they pick up Javonte Williams for basically nothing. It's just Jerry crazy. Jones, man. It's crazy what that dude has been able to pull off in Dallas here. To give you an update on the game here, after that Vidal run, the first play of the second quarter was a Justin Herbert 18-yard run. We saw Kimani Vidal 4-yard run, and then another scramble for Justin Herbert on second down. He picks up the first down. It is now 1st and goal from the Vikings 3 with 13:13 to go in the first quarter. A Orande Gadsden touchdown here would be mind melting for, or whatever the phrase is, for a lot of players out there in the FFPC if they have Gadsden going here. Speaking of tight ends, what about, and by the way, it is a touchdown, but it's going to go to Kimani Vidal, a 3-yard touchdown run, as the Chargers have now taken a 13-0 lead over the Minnesota Vikings. Will this mean more stats for the Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinsons of the world? Perhaps, and we'll be following it here for the next few minutes. Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith, Fant obviously taking advantage of the Mike Gesicki injury in Cincinnati. Jonnu Smith is another guy that I think is interesting, but man, we saw 3 tight ends be relevant for Pittsburgh a week ago tonight with the Steelers and Bengals. You can only pick one. I'm picking Fant over Jonnu Smith. Am I right?
Yeah, I would too. I mean, it's funny because maybe this might be the instance if I don't love either, because Fant's routes and stuff, his usage has been fine. It hasn't really been, up to 73%. So 73% was pretty good last week. I mean, that's encouraging, but he still only saw, I think, 4 or 5 targets, right? In a game where Flacco threw the ball felt like a million times. So I don't know. Maybe it was just randomness. Maybe you'll see more targets this week, because I think he's still going to be a big part of their offense. But yeah, good matchup. Flacco's chucking it. Whereas Jonnu is just so much competition. And you just really know it never really get. I mean, there was an 80-yard Pat Freiermuth touchdown last week. They used Darnell Washington a lot more because they wanted to do heavier sets. And then Jonnu's just catching the ball sometimes whenever Art feels like dialing him up, play to him. I don't know. It's complete mess.
It is. We'll go rapid fire on these quarterbacks here. Jackson Dart or Joe Flacco. This week, Jackson Dart taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, and obviously Joe Flacco taking on those New York Jets in Cincinnati.
Gosh, we have Flacco a little bit higher, like one spot higher, at QB 13 versus QB 14. But I love Jackson Dart. I'm just like I'm such a fan. I think he's just like got some swag and plays ridiculous football, and so I enjoy that in a game that's like diminishing product. I think in a lot of ways. So I'll go Dart just for fun. But I think both are good starts.
That I say this once a week, seemingly every single week. Fantasy football is supposed to be fun. I'd have more fun playing Dart over Flacco this week.
For sure.
So I'm with you on this. Yeah. A bye week issue here, maybe Marcus Mariota at Kansas City or CJ Stroud at home against the Niners.
I'm playing Mariota for sure. I think Mariota is going to run the ball a bunch, and Stroud and this Houston offense. I mean, Nick Caley should have been fired yesterday, and they said they're not even making a change at offensive coordinator. I mean, it's just complete disaster. I have no idea what he's calling. It's terrible.
Worst offensive coordinator performance this year, Nick Caley or Kevin Patullo in Philadelphia?
Oh man, I'm gonna go Caley. I mean, when they got down last week, I swear they just ran like 4 verts every single play, despite their offensive line getting eaten alive. Like there was no one running a route within like 6 to 7 yards. I was like, what is going on? Like no short stuff. It was just like a bomb every play and hope he doesn't get sacked. I don't know. I think I've seen 12-year-olds call plays better in Madden. Like it was embarrassing.
You know what's funny is I was the 12-year-old playing Madden that would just call 4 verts all the time. If I was up by 40, if I was down by 40, hey, let's have some fun. That's what I usually did. Last one for you. This is the one I alluded to. It seems like everybody's asking this question this week. Would you play Bo Nix over Dak Prescott this week? They play each other in Denver this week, Connor.
Yeah, we have Nix QB5, Dak QB10. I like them both good starts, but I think Bo Nix adds a little bit more with his legs. Kind of adds a little bit of a higher floor here for him, even though Dak has technically a better, receiving core, also a much tougher matchup.
Yeah, the matchup to me for Nix is like that. That's what tips the scales. I understand the legs that's included in my decision as well, but for me, it's got to be Nix over Prescott this week. Yeah. Connor Allen at Connor Allen NFL 4for4football.com at 4for4football 4for4.com. The best way to consume more of your content. Where should we go, and what are you working on for the remainder of the regular season here?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Connor Allen NFL. I release all of my player prop bets each week in 4-4's Discord. And yeah, do a weekly betting show twice a week called Move the Line. We got tomorrow prop drop at 3 p.m. Eastern, where we release some plays and hang out for an hour and talk about our favorite props each week.
It's going to be a lot of fun continuing to follow that, as well as, and anybody who checks out your X feed will notice a lot of good NBA stuff on there as well, for sure, for those of us who partake. Connor, man, this is great. We can't wait to have you back again. Keep up the great work at 4for4 and everything you're doing there. Be good, and we will talk with you again soon.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate having me on.
Absolutely. The FFPC Weekly Challenge. Check it out. MyFFPC.com. No draft, no salary cap. Pick 10 or 12 players, depending upon if you want to play with kickers or defenses. Win up to $2,500. 10, 30, 100-team contest. 1 player per NFL team. Available now. MyFFPC.com. I want to shout out our producer, Sean Engel and Connor Allen. We'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. RotoViz's Kevin Safraniak is going to join us for the Ravens and Dolphins. For Sean Engel, for Connor Allen, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the FFPC Insider Access Show on Fantasy Football Night in America, exclusively on the Better Sports Network. Enjoy the rest of the game, everybody.